आज हम decode करेंगे the massively complex 12,000-year history of Westeros. If you think you know exactly who killed who, when they were born, and how the political chessboard was set, well, hold on tight. Because ancient decisions made thousands of years ago created a massive ripple effect right into the present day. This explainer is going to connect all those missing links for you. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our historical map for today. We'll start with the dawn of ancient Westeros, move into the First Long Night, cover the Andal Cultural Revolution, the Doom and Targaryen conquest, the Civil Wars and Dead Dragons, and finally, wrap up with the Mad King's downfall. Section 1. Dawn of Ancient Westeros. To truly understand the roots of this world, we literally have to rewind the clock way back. We're talking 12,000 years back in time. Back then, Westeros was completely wild. It was ruled by giants and this deeply magical, nature-connected race known as the Children of the Forest. But then, the first men arrived. They migrated from Essos, crossing over a land bridge called the Arm of Dorne, carrying bronze weapons and fully prepared to settle down. Now, as you can imagine, aggressively chopping down the locals' sacred weirwood trees didn't exactly go over well. The children fought back with immense, earth-shattering magic. They actually broke the Arm of Dorne into the stepstones. But eventually, they realized they had to coexist. So a peace treaty was established, known as the Pact on the Isle of Faces. What's absolutely fascinating here is how this ancient pact echoes right into the modern day. The first men actually adopted the religion of the Children of the Forest. Those iconic red-leaved, white-trunked weirwood trees, they connect directly to the old gods. And this 12,000-year-old foundation is exactly why families like the Starks still pray in the godswood up in the north today. It's a direct line to the ancient past. Section 2. The First Long Night. So imagine a winter that fell 8,000 years ago and lasted for an entire generation. People were literally born, grew up, and died knowing absolutely nothing but freezing, pitch-black darkness. Just let that sink in for a second. And hey, keep this 8,000-year mark in the back of your mind, all right? Because history in Westeros is heavily cyclical, and we are definitely going to see this identical threat return. Out of that terrifying darkness emerged the White Walkers. Now, the lore reveals something crazy. They were originally created by the Children of the Forest to fight the First Men. You can basically think of them as a magical biological weapon. But, as with most superweapons, things went entirely out of control, and they became a massive threat to all living things. It got so bad that it forced the First Men and the Children to put aside their differences and unite. They rallied behind a legendary figure known as the Last Hero, fought the battle for the Dawn, and pushed the nightmare all the way back into the extreme north. After pushing them back, they knew they had to secure Westeros permanently. Enter the Wall. But it wasn't simply 700 feet of ice and stone. Brandon the Builder actually infused the structure with ancient magic. And the Night's Watch? They were established at this exact same time. A dedicated, sworn brotherhood standing guard, explicitly preparing for the day this frozen threat might return.
Section 3. The Andal Cultural Revolution.
Okay, fast forward to roughly 6,000 years ago, which is about 2 millennia after the Long Night. A massive new wave of migration permanently reshaped the map yet again. The Andals arrived from Essos. And they brought some serious upgrades, specifically iron weapons. But honestly, more importantly, they brought a huge ideological shift with their religion, the Faith of the Seven. They didn't just conquer the southern territories, they executed a complete cultural reset. They introduced the whole concept of knighthood and formed this stable medieval Seven Kingdoms political structure that we all recognize today.
And this brilliantly illustrates a massive cultural divide that still defines Westeros today. While the South was completely transformed by Andal bloodlines and the Faith of the Seven, the North successfully held the line. They fought back and kept the Andals out. They retained the original First Men bloodline and their ancient faith in the old gods. This explains the intense, night and day geographic and cultural differences between the North and the rest of the continent.
Section 4. Doom and Targaryen Conquest. Now let's completely shift our focus over to a different continent for a minute. Essos. Over there, the incredibly advanced Valyrian freehold and their dragons reigned supreme as an unmatched global superpower for 5,000 years. But before we get deep into this era, let's quickly orient ourselves in time. In Westeros, literally everything on the calendar revolves around Aegon Targaryen. BC stands for before conquest, and AC stands for after conquest. Just keep this vital dating system in mind as we enter the era of the Dragon Lords. So you might be wondering, How on earth did the Targaryens avoid the total destruction of Valyria? Well, it all comes down to a young girl named Daenerys. She had a prophetic dream about Valyria's doom. Her father, Aenar Targaryen, took a massive leap of faith and actually believed her, uprooting and relocating the entire family to Dragonstone in Westeros. They waited 12 years. Then, in 102 BC, a catastrophic and mysterious volcanic event wiped Valyria off the map in a single night. Because of that one decision to relocate, the Targaryens survived as the world's absolute last remaining dragon lords. Fast forward a century to the year 0 AC, Aegon's conquest. Aegon, along with his sister wives Visenya and Rhaenys, invaded Westeros, and they brought 3 absolute nuclear-level dragons with them: Balerion, Vhagar, and Meraxes. After devastating victories, entire armies literally burned to ash in the field of fire, they united the realm. The only exception was Dorne, who basically just looked at the dragons and stubbornly said, yeah, no thanks. To symbolize this brutal new era, Aegon established King's Landing and literally melted the swords of his defeated enemies to forge the Iron Throne.
Section 5. Civil Wars and Dead Dragons. For about a century after the conquest, the Seven Kingdoms were relatively stable. But then a chaotic domino effect began, and the Targaryen dynasty started to rot from the inside out. In 129 AC, King Viserys I died, sparking a massive succession crisis between his daughter Rhaenyra and his son Aegon II. This violently divided the realm into 2 factions, the Blacks and the Greens, launching the devastating civil war known as the Dance of the Dragons. Decades later, the first Blackfyre Rebellion kicked off in 196 AC when King Aegon IV legitimized his bastards. Toss in massive plagues like the Great Spring Sickness in 209 AC, and you have a kingdom that was just constantly bleeding out. The fallout from all these internal wars was simply catastrophic. During the dance, dragons were forced to fight dragons. And what that proved was that these creatures were entirely independent, definitely not fully controllable pets. Deep familial trust and historical alliances were permanently shattered. By 153 AC, the last dragon died. That meant House Targaryen completely lost their ultimate trump card. Stripped of dragons, they had to rely purely on politics and diplomacy, which made dealing with the recurring Blackfyre rebellions a massive, exhausting drain on their resources for the next 60 years. Desperation to regain lost power makes people do crazy things. Which brings us to 259 AC and the tragedy at Summerhall. The king attempted this fatal, catastrophic experiment using volatile wildfire to try and hatch dragon eggs. Obviously, things spiraled out of control and several royals died in the blaze. But what's truly fascinating is that this fiery tragedy happened on the exact same day Prince Rhaegar Targaryen was born. It deeply intertwined his whole life with fire, grief, and that legendary prophecy of the prince that was promised. Section 6. The Mad King's Downfall. Now, what's really interesting about all this is a famous saying in Westeros: whenever a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin. This speaks directly to the madness woven right into their bloodline. King Aerys II wasn't always completely unhinged, actually. But in 277 AC, an event called the Defiance of Duskendale, where he was taken prisoner, permanently shattered his mind. He became deeply, deeply paranoid, seeing enemies literally everywhere, and developed this horrifying obsession with using wildfire to solve his problems. The escalation from paranoia to outright war was incredibly rapid. In 281 AC, at the tourney of Harrenhal, Prince Rhaegar kicked off a massive scandal by publicly declaring his love for Lyanna Stark. Soon after, they disappeared together. When Lyanna's father and brother, Rickard and Brandon Stark, marched down to King's Landing demanding answers, the Mad King brutally murdered them. And that was it, the point of no return. The realm erupted. By 283 AC, Robert Baratheon, Ned Stark, and other prominent lords launched a full-blown rebellion to tear the crown down for good. The total collapse of a 300-year dynasty happened with blinding speed. At the Battle of the Trident, Robert Baratheon strikes down Prince Rhaegar. Then Tywin Lannister brings his army and brutally sacks King's Landing. Finally, inside the very throne room Aegon the Conqueror built, Kingsguard Jaime Lannister breaks his sacred oath. He kills the Mad King to stop him from burning the entire city to the ground. The surviving royal children, Viserys and Daenerys, are smuggled across the sea into hiding. And just like that, the Targaryen reign was officially over. And that incredible sequence of events brings us right to 298 AC, the exact starting point of the Game of Thrones. Robert Baratheon sits on the Iron Throne. But remember those ancient ripple effects we mapped out at the very beginning?
Across the Narrow Sea, Daenerys Targaryen is about to hatch dragons that have been extinct for 150 years. And far, far in the geographic north, an ice-cold, supernatural threat from 8,000 years ago is waking up once again. So, as 298 AC begins with extinct weapons reborn and an ancient frozen nightmare returning, will history simply repeat itself?